Today I'm going to show you a really thorough look at a 5th grade language arts curriculum called Hearth and Story. Let's get into it. First of all, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaela. I am a homeschool mama to 4 girls. I'm currently homeschooling my older 2 girls. I am getting ready to start my 7th year of homeschooling my daughters, which will be 5th grade and 2nd grade respectively for my girls. I am super excited to try out Hearth and Story language arts for my oldest 5th grade year. And I'm also really excited to show it to you guys. I can't wait to see what y'all think about this curriculum. It's relatively new on the market, and this was the very first grade level that was released. I will have all of the information linked down below in the description box so that you can check out Hearth and Story for yourself. The creator of this curriculum is also the author, or one of the authors, who worked on History Quest with Pandia Press. And History Quest, as some of you may know, is a very beloved curriculum in our homeschool. So I was very intrigued to find out that this author was starting her own language arts program. I have never been satisfied with an all-in-one language arts program. We've never had any success with them. I always tend to piecemeal language arts. I pull from different curricula publishers to sort of fill in all of those different components: spelling, grammar, writing, reading, all the things. So this will be new for us to try and meet at least most of those needs under the language arts umbrella with just one curriculum. I have no idea if it will be a hit or a miss, so we're in this journey together. It's way too soon to do a review or to share my opinion because I have not used Hearth and Story yet, but I wanted to show you guys. I'm excited about it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around and show you guys what this curriculum looks like, what it includes, what it entails, and hopefully you'll be able to get a good idea if it's something you might want to try with your student. Okay, so I got the curriculum printed from my favorite small family business. They're a homeschool family business, Watson Family Press. They do such a beautiful job of packaging your prints with care, and the quality of their work is just awesome. They're also very affordable with their prices. And so they have separated the files for me with these sheets of paper. I did opt to get everything punched for a 3-ring binder because that is how we're going to be storing it. Here is another short story study. We have a novel study, another novel study for the giver. These are some flashcards that are included in the curriculum. So I opted to have these printed in color and also to have them laminated, and then I can cut them apart myself. These are the planner pages, brain food pages. This is our spelling portion of the curriculum. Our writing portion. We have another novel study and another novel study. Our poetry component, our grammar section, and then one final short story study. So I need to get these organized a bit. I actually looked at the binder prep video from the creator of this curriculum, Lindsay Sodano. I will put that video down in the description box in case you want to check out how she has actually prepped her son's binder. Her son is using this curriculum. So if you want to see how she set up her binder, go ahead and check out that video. I kind of mimicked a little bit of what she did. I did not copy it exactly because I'm working with a smaller binder, a 1-inch binder. So I was able to come up with a solution that just barely fits everything that we need on a daily basis in the 1-inch binder. What I've done is I put the brain food section in the front, followed by spelling, and I'm just using, tab dividers to separate the sections. Then I have grammar. Then I have writing. And then last but not least in the back is poetry. I did not include in the binder any of our novel studies or any of the short story studies My plan is that I will keep these for her in my teacher's binder. And whichever one she is working on, we can pull out and stick in here just for the duration that she needs it. And then we'll just change these out as she needs them. The other thing that I did not put in here is the planning pages. These are going to live in my teacher's binder because she doesn't really need these. And now let's go ahead and take a look at all of this. So I'm going to start by showing you the planner and resource pages. Obviously, we've already talked about the author of this curriculum, Lindsay Sodano. She starts off by having this nice little introductory page with sort of an overview of her current offerings for Hearth and Story, as well as her social media details. And then she has this great page. I love her clear color-coded steps for how to use Hearth and Story. She talks about how this is a complete curriculum that includes spelling, grammar, writing, novel studies, short stories, poetry, and brain food. It covers Common Core standards for 5th grade language arts. However, she has designed this to be flexible and to be able to accommodate different families' needs. So you don't necessarily need to use all of the components of language arts. Let's say you already have a spelling program that you love, you already have a grammar program you love, you're really just trying to pull in some literature or some writing or some poetry. You can get any of these components individually. You can pick and choose what you would like to use, what you need. I found the entire package to just be so affordable and such a great deal that it made sense for me to go ahead and get it. But even if I decided to switch out one of these components, like if I say, you know what, we actually liked the other spelling program we were using better, that's totally fine because all of these components are integrated with each other, but they can stand alone. And you can definitely take out things, switch things up, and just use what you actually need for your student and for your homeschool. She also talks here about the myth of the 5-day school week and how she's designed the curriculum to be flexible. She says that you can definitely use a 5-day schedule or even a 4-day schedule, and the curriculum will still be able to be completed even if you have those off weeks where you only get to it 3 days or 2 days a week. Don't stress about it. She has designed it to accommodate all of these spontaneous and sometimes unwelcome distractions and adjustments that come along with home education that can sometimes throw a wrench into our schedule. She talks about printing and binding. This is a digital curriculum. When you purchase it, you will only get PDF files, so you will need to print it. It is a lot of printing. It's a hefty curriculum, and the pages are aesthetically beautiful and designed to be printed in full color, which can affect cost, obviously. So she's very upfront about that. Keep that in mind. She recommends the binder system with tabs, but also you could spiral bind. You could organize this however you would like. And then she also points out that all of your poems and short stories are already included in your curriculum pages. So the only additional things that you will need to purchase are the novels themselves. And for 5th grade, she has 4 novel studies for the entire year, which I think is just a really manageable amount. I was very drawn to only 4 novels for the year. That was a huge selling factor for me. A lot of literature-based curriculum have really extensive book lists. They have quite a lot of reading to get through for the year. And I appreciate a slightly more minimal approach, even though we love literature. We love to incorporate reading all the time. I didn't want to put so much pressure on my daughter to have an extensive list of assigned reading material. I want to leave room for her, breathing room in her schedule so that she can choose reading material based on what she's interested in. So, with that in mind, here is the list of our novels and short stories for 5th grade. And I like the way that she has scheduled this out where you're alternating sort of a heavier, more time-consuming novel study with a short story study. So we start off with Over the Moon. She has that scheduled for about 29 days for reading that novel and getting into the study. Then we do a very brief 3-day short story study of The Emperor's New Clothes. Then we go into another novel study for about a month, again, Gregor the Overlander. Then another short story study for about 3 days, The Steadfast Tin Soldier. Then a even more in-depth novel study. This is the longest of the year, The Last Map Maker. She's estimating that will take about 45 days. Then we have another short story, The Nightingale. And then we close out the year with The Giver for, again, about a month. She says 26 days. The theme for the year is the stories we are told. She talks about how each of these 4 novels have young protagonists which are confronting issues involving their identity, their class, their history, and even though they live in very different universes, they all have something in common where they bravely question the status quo and they challenge the stories that are handed down to them. So this is kind of the theme that she is looking at for 5th grade. I think it's very age appropriate. 5th grade, we're talking about 10, 11-year-olds. This is really the age where they start that questioning process. And so these novels are all seemingly very age appropriate and will interest most kids in that age group and that demographic. I know I previewed all of these stories with my 10-year-old, and that is what got her really amped and excited to try out Hearth and Story. All of the novels selected really appealed to her, and she is very excited to get into them this year. We have some sample scheduling pages. I will not be using these because I have my own homeschool planner that I use. I also have a student planner for my daughter that we've kind of had hit or miss experience with. But if we decide to use some sort of structured planning for her, I will probably defer to that rather than these pages. But I like that she's included these. She has a suggestion here for what you could fit into a 5-day week versus what you could fit into a 4-day week. And then she has a list for all of the lessons for the entire year. So if you're making your own schedule for the year, this is what you really want to keep in mind. You have 150 spelling lessons, 140 novel or short story lessons combined, 89 grammar lessons, 96 writing lessons, 30 poetry lessons, and 27 brain food lessons. So if you were tracking your curriculum, I do have tracker pages. I would mark out, okay, we have 89 for grammar, we have 150 for spelling. And then, you can kind of keep track as to where you are throughout the year, how much progress you are making. I really like that she's included suggestions for both a 5-day week and a 4-day week. We typically do core subject work 4 days a week. So this is probably more in line with what we will end up doing. So for a 4-day week, we're looking at 1 spelling lesson a day, 1 literature lesson a day. So that's either your novel or your short story, whatever you happen to be working on. 2 grammar lessons for the week. So you're touching grammar twice. 1 writing lesson, which is going to span 2 or 3 days. So you're touching that almost every day during your 4-day week. 1 poetry lesson, 1 brain food lesson, and free reading every day is her suggestion. So right off the bat, this just feels very feasible and doable. A spelling lesson every day. You're going to see those. They are very short. A literature lesson every day. And then, maybe we start our writing lesson on Monday and we plan on having it wrapped by Wednesday or Thursday. And then, the grammar, the poetry, the brain food is all going to be sort of slotted in there. But those are not things that we're touching every single day. So then on the next page, she sort of filled in an idea of what this could look like, an example of what this could look like. And she makes checklists for her child. So you can get a really good idea of how you could schedule out this curriculum based on these lists and this example that she's included. Here is sort of an additional and optional thing that she's included in the curriculum. And I really do like all of the social emotional aspects that she's included in the curriculum, as well as critical thinking aspects. We'll see more with that with the brain food in a little bit. But one of the things that she has included is this gratitude jar. So she tells you how to make this with, just a simple mason jar. And her recommendation is to start incorporating gratitude into your child's life, because this is proven to help us to be more optimistic, happier, more positive in our thinking. And her suggestion is to just have your student write down something they are thankful for once a week, every few days, or even daily. And she does include some really pretty slips of paper that you can make copies of. She has a couple pages of those for them to write what they are grateful for that day, and then fold up that slip of paper and put it into their gratitude jar. So I think this is really sweet that she's included this. It's obviously optional. You might have a different system in your family for how you express gratitude on a regular basis, but I like the thought that she included that. Here are some really nice colored book log pages that she's also included. I'm not sure we will use these because we have a notebook that we use to log books, but it's there. It's nice that she's included that. And then I also really like that she included these. She really has thought of everything. These are binder spines. Those are all of the planning pages. The pages that I need that I'm going to reference regularly, I will keep those in my teaching binder. Okay, so let's actually get into the curriculum pages. So these are the brain food pages. When you open each component of this curriculum, you will get sort of a how-to guide for that particular component. She does recommend about one brain food lesson per week. There are 27 weeks of brain food lessons, so that allows you some flexibility. If you're on a 36-week or 42-week for the year schedule, you have plenty of time to finish all of this. She has a material list. She also has a list of the standards, the Common Core standards that are met. And all of your pages are double-sided, and you'll see just how short these lessons are. This is lesson 1, this is lesson 2. 2 lessons to a page. Lesson 3 is a little bit longer, but most of these you're finding 2 lessons to a page. So they are very short lessons. Now, what is the purpose of the brain food component? So you're getting some reading comprehension, but you're also practicing things like critical thinking, logical thinking, finding fallacies. She teaches different types of fallacy, what they each mean. And I gotta be honest, this is new information for me. I have never learned this, and it's super interesting. I'm really excited that this is going to be something we cover together this year. She talks about idioms. That's kind of a little bit of a grammar related thing. There is a biography project in the brain food, note taking, designing a slideshow, giving the kids an opportunity to make a visual presentation, whether that be a video or a PowerPoint, kind of comparing some basic principles across a wide array of world religions or mythology beliefs from the past, talking about hormones. Like, there's just so much really fascinating stuff in here. At the end of the brain food weeks, you do get a certificate of completion. This certificate is actually for the entire language arts curriculum, but she's included it in the brain food component so that your child can, have that feeling of accomplishment, have that to look back on. And then we do have an answer key in the very back. So I might actually be pulling these pages out and putting those in my teacher's binder. Next thing we have is spelling. Again, we have a how-to page with materials, standards. She explains her approach to spelling. She's really focusing on commonly misspelled words and often confused homophones. She also teaches some Greek and Latin roots throughout this spelling program. She does give you word lists for all 25 lessons, 25 weeks of spelling here. She has some blank lists here if your kiddo needs additional practice with any of these words. This would be a good place to create those lists. And then we jump right into the lessons. And she has these divided up by day because spelling is something that she is recommending they touch daily, but they are short lessons for each day. So for list 1, she has day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5, and then you start list 2 with the same thing. So your list is over here on these pages. So these are the words that you would be using for all of week 1. And so you need someone to be dictating the words to the student. I would read this list aloud to her, and she's going to write those words to the best of her ability. We would rank with this little ranking system, how confident she felt that she spelled that word correctly. Day 2, we're just writing the words again, but in different mediums. So we're using pencil, crayon, and marker. Day 3, we're doing a little bit of word study with some of the words on the list, doing a little bit of Greek roots here. She's talking about ints or aunts, how we can know which one to use. Day 4 is more of a practice day. She has some suggested physical activities for your child to practice their spelling while they jump rope, or practice writing the words in sand or in shaving cream. Spell the words while balancing a book on your head. If the book drops, start over. Write your words in a fun font like cursive or bubble letters. She's really made an effort to make it fun and interesting and engaging while they are practicing their spelling words, which for most kids, spelling is not that fun and engaging. So I appreciate the effort that she's put into trying to make it more fun. Day 5, on your final day, you're going to review only the words that you really were struggling with in the beginning. So if your child writes a word from the list correctly, they feel confident they got it right, those are not going to require additional review on day 5. So you can see how day 5 can almost be optional, depending on whether or not your child needs that extra review of any of the words. That's kind of the general schedule that you're going through. Day 1, you're introducing the words. Day 2 is a little bit more practice. Day 3 is really your deeper dive into the words. That's where you're doing some word study, some etymology. 4 is kind of fun practice, and then 5 is optional review. Okay, so next we have grammar. Again, we have our how-to guide with our materials, our standards that are met. She says that this guide is going to help students understand parts of speech, sentence structure, punctuation, and more. And this is divided into just lessons because this is not something that they will need to touch every day. Her recommendation is 2 grammar lessons a week. I'm sure you have noticed by now, but the full color and the illustrations really does add a lot of pizzazz to this curriculum. Your very first couple of weeks, you're reviewing all of the parts of speech. Eventually, we do get into work with subjects and predicates, different types of sentences, fragments versus run-ons, compound sentences, when to use commas and semicolons, an active voice versus a passive voice. She does have reviews built into this curriculum as well. I really appreciate that. She does get into different types of verbs, prepositions, prepositional phrases, different types of conjunctions. There are 86 total lessons. We have some additional review pages at the back, as well as our answer key at the back. Okay, writing, 5th grade writing. This is a full year writing curriculum. Her recommendation is approximately 1 writing lesson per week, and that will typically be spread across about 3 days. And she has about 32 weeks for the writing component of Hearth and Story. Again, materials list, standards list, and then we start right in with our lessons. Lesson 1 is a time capsule essay. She really has broken this down. It's written to the student. It's formatted very simply. The pages are laid out really nicely. My kid is very visual. She is an artist. She's creative. She responds well to materials that are laid out in an aesthetically pleasing fashion. So that is something that really drew us to Hearth and Story. Your lesson text is brief and to the point. She has steps clearly outlined for the student. She goes through all the stages of writing, from brainstorming to planning to drafting to revising, polishing, proofreading, and then finally publishing your final draft. So all of this material for lesson 1, you would divvy that up throughout 1 week. And then the following week, you go into lesson 2. She does teach editing marks. She has checklists for what to look for in each paragraph of your paper. And then the writing program is directly tied to your literature units, your novel studies and your short story studies. So by lesson 8, when your child should be finishing Over the Moon, their first novel study of the year, they will be answering 3 journal topics based on that story. Now, she does say if your student is not studying Over the Moon, you've decided not to use the novel study portion of this curriculum, then she gives you another option. They could apply these questions and journal prompts to another story of their choosing or of your choice. She does include some short texts right within the writing curriculum, and these are meant to help your child practice editing. So that is great. I really like that that's included. She is also teaching different types of writing. So we have persuasive essay, we have a 5-paragraph essay, expository essay, narrative essay, and a descriptive essay. Towards the end of the year, she's also teaching research reports. And then she has an end of the year time capsule essay. So you'll remember we started off our year with writing with a time capsule essay. So your child has an opportunity to make something really special and sentimental, documenting their personal growth over their 5th grade year, from the very beginning to the very end. Now, as far as I can tell, this writing program is pretty explicit. I mean, she is teaching and explaining what an expository essay is. She is going through step by step. However, it's not quite as explicit as some writing materials that we've used and that some kids really need. It's not quite as slow and scaffolded as, say, Write by Number. It's not giving the explicit sentence and paragraph practice that maybe the methods in the Writing Revolution offer. I think it is designed from a vantage point that your child by 5th grade is already somewhat familiar with the writing process. They've already kind of learned how to put together a paragraph. There is no sentence level work in this writing program. They're starting with essays and multi-paragraph writing right off the bat. So keep that in mind. If your child is still struggling with writing, if they still need additional practice at the sentence level, they might not be ready for Hearth and Story 5th grade writing. Okay, and then poetry, our poetry component. Again, we have a how-to use guide, we have our standards, we have our material list. She says, this guide will help your student understand literary devices such as similes, personification, and alliteration, and most importantly, it will foster an appreciation for poetry. That sounds really good to me. Her schedule is 1 poem study per week, and she has about 30 poems. So again, there's always that flexibility built in. This is not a curriculum that is jam-packed for 36 weeks straight. Every component has a little bit of that flexibility built in. She talks about her choice of poems and how most of the poetry that is selected is going to be written in modern English because she thinks that words like thou and doth can really confuse young students and turn them off on poetry altogether. And I completely agree with that approach. So here we jump right into our lessons. She has these divided by poem. So we have the title of the poem at the top, and then we have 3 steps for each poem: an introduction, read closely, and then an analysis. And it follows that same pattern throughout the entire curriculum. So those are your lesson pages, your activity pages. Now your poems, these are printed in black and white. This is actually a really fun opportunity for coloring if your kiddo is into that sort of thing. But she has all of these included and prepped for you, so you don't have to go buy an additional book of poetry or look for these online. They're all right here for you. We're starting off our year with this poem by William Thackeray, At the Zoo. So your child would read this introduction first, then they would read the poem at the zoo. She encourages them to read it out loud so they can sort of hear the rhythmic sounds of the poem. And then she has sort of a discussion prompt here. Did you notice anything unusual about the way the words rhyme or don't rhyme? Discuss with your teacher. Read your rhyme scheme flashcard. What is the rhyme scheme of At the Zoo? So this introduces our flashcards, which are also included when you purchase the full curriculum package. So here's the rhyme scheme flashcard. She has flashcards for meter symbolism, repetition, simile, metaphor, alliteration, onomatopoeia, pun, hyperbole, personification, imagery, diction, consonants, assonance, mood, line, speaker, couplet, stanza. So lots of great literary elements are covered just with these flashcards. So when we go to our rhyme scheme flashcard, on the other side, she talks about the pattern of rhymes, usually shown using letters. So here she has an A, B pattern. So cat rhymes with hat, dog rhymes with log. So this is just a very simple introduction to rhyme scheme. Now your child's going to go back through and read this again and see which words rhyme. Maybe you have them highlight those words in the same color. It's really just an opportunity to discuss and introduce this concept of rhyme scheme. And then the next step would be to more closely analyze the poem. She actually defines the rhyme scheme as AABB, and then she talks about how that rhyme scheme is sudden and abrupt and off-putting in a similar way to the way that a stinky smell at the zoo might hit you in the nose. Kind of showing some hidden meaning, some symbolism that maybe was not initially seen. So that's how we're starting the year. Let's look at how we're closing the year out. So by the end of the year, you will have reviewed all of these different literary elements multiple times with these poems. And at the very end, your child will have the opportunity to take a look through those flashcards again and jot down, what do I feel really confident that I understand, and what do I feel like I'm still learning and still kind of figuring out what that means. So this is really helpful to have this built in introspective review for your student to do either alone or with you. And then obviously as the parent, this is really helpful for me to know, what do they feel like they've really mastered by the end of the year. Okay, so those are our main language arts components: the brain food, the spelling, the grammar, the writing, and the poetry. But another huge part of this is the novel studies and the short story studies. So I will show you one of each. We start the year with Over the Moon by Natalie Lloyd. Again, we have a how-to, a material list, and a standards list. She suggests that your student read one chapter of this book per school day, and then complete the associated questions and activities that are assigned for that day and that chapter. If you stick to that schedule, it will take you 27 days to complete this novel study. She has this introductory activity that is sort of meant for them to come back to throughout their entire reading of the novel. She says almost every page of this book mentions some sort of dust, grime, or powder. So this is a way for your child to keep track of those different references that sort of contribute to an overarching feeling or theme in the story. She says they don't need to capture every single one. Obviously, there's not enough room here, but any that stand out to them, this gives them an opportunity to track those. And then we go into our lessons, and they are assigned by chapter. So for chapter 1, we have brainstorm. Take a look at the sentence that begins the book and brainstorm where you think the book is headed. What themes do you think you'll expect to see in the book? There's an opportunity to define some new terms that are specific to this story. She has a comparing texts activity. This gives your student an opportunity to compare this story to maybe one they've already read before or one that's already on their shelf, and then to do some copy work, your favorite opening sentence. Write it below. And that is it for chapter 1. So that is all they would do for one day of this novel study. Then we go into chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, 6, 7. You can see some of these are quite brief lessons. They're reading the chapter and they're just doing 1 or 2 very brief activities based on what they have just read. Throughout this particular novel study, they are getting some vocabulary work. They are talking about the symbolism and inferences and the plot, some character study, and there is obviously some writing involved as well. We have an answer key at the end, and that wraps up our very first novel study of the year. Short story study. So here's an example, Emperor's New Clothes. Again, how-to guide, materials, standards. I think most of these short story studies are from Hans Christian Andersen. So this is kind of where we're getting some of our classic literature tied in. On day 1, she's introducing the author Hans Christian Andersen and sort of getting your student to be familiar with his work and to take note of the works that they've already encountered by him, like The Little Mermaid. Maybe they've read the book or seen a movie or video, or they're not familiar with the story at all. So this is a nice little introductory page. Then they're going to read the story, and the story is built in right here. So this is the actual story text that they are reading. All of the short story texts are built into your pages. On day 2, they're mapping out the plot of the story. We have a nice little plot mountain here where they can do that. On day 3, they're looking for synonyms and antonyms in the story. And then we have our answer key in the back. So this is a really short 3-day unit for this short story. And then we go into a longer novel study again. Okay, y'all, so that is Hearth and Story. I will definitely share more of our thoughts and more of a thorough review as we actually get into this and start using it. But my daughter and I are really, really excited about using this for her 5th grade year. I'm really hopeful that it's going to be a good fit and work out for us, and I will definitely keep you guys posted. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them below. I hope you found this video to be really helpful, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye for now.